Welcome back, Rhino Radio, with a very different holiday special. I am joined by Reverend David Butterworth, which is he is a minister of the Methodist Church of Britain. Thank you again for joining me today, David.
My pleasure.
As we already introduced the topic in our previous segment, we are trying to celebrate the holiday season on all of the holidays that are kind of around it, of all different faiths and all different cultures, but we're also aware of the challenges that this holiday brings in general, but also even more intensified this year by the pandemic that brought a lot of challenges to us. So I would like to ask David about obviously, we had a lot of hardships this year in all different shapes and forms. I would like to talk to you about some of your main ones this year. If you would be okay with sharing them with us, please.
Yeah, of course I would. Part of my ministry as a Methodist minister is supporting people in the wider community. My role is outside church walls, 24/7. So I find myself in universities and exhibition centres, business centres, in community meetings, in interfaith meetings, in social justice meetings with people of every faith and none, trade unionists, educationalists. And of course, for a while, all of that was stopped. We could not meet physically, and actually meeting physically enabled us to have that excitement of the other and the engagement of the other. And you could have a discreet conversation with somebody whilst you were getting a cup of tea or a samosa or a spring roll. That stopped, but thank goodness for technology and Zoom and Teams and WhatsApp, that slowly but surely we've all become a bit more accepting of all of that, and that we can have meetings with one or two people on a screen like we're doing today, but knowing that it will be communicated to thousands of people later, and or we can have meetings with 300 people on a Zoom meeting, and it's equally valid. I think one of the challenges has been that Zoom and Teams is tiring. One of my friends, who is a chaplain for Birmingham and Solihull Mental Health Trust, she offers chaplaincy across 85 sites around the wider West Midlands in Britain, and she has a team of 25 chaplains. Some of them are pagan, some of them are Jewish, some of them are Hindu, Muslim, Christian, different denominations of all of those faith positions, including humanist. I've met most of them. They're all wonderful and lovely. But one of the phrases that Carol has presented us with in the last few months is that a phrase called moral injury. And people who like people really do like to be with people. I really like being with people, and but it injures us spiritually not to be able to be with people, and so that moral injury can be quite damaging unless you're bold enough to be able to speak about it. And like you just asked me, what are the challenges? Well, I miss people, and I tried my best with the support of others and with others collaboratively to appropriately engage in writing letters, sending emails, making phone calls, doing Zoom things, doing stuff like this with your good self this morning, so that hopefully somewhere in the world, somebody might pick up and say, wow, that's relevant to me, or that's meaningful to me, and that we can actually communicate with each other. Sometimes with even, dark screens, not showing who we are, but the word is important. And for me, perhaps it's more important to have an inclusive, welcoming word so that people realize that we're all welcome. And, one of the wonderful things as well, more prevalent on social media these days, is people with that wonderful gift of making sign language speak in parliamentary meetings or in business meetings or in global meetings. There's somebody offering sign language like Rosie that was at that Christmas Camille that you spoke of earlier, and even in worship, whatever tradition that might be, there are subtitles, and so perhaps through this COVID nightmare, people are becoming a little bit more thinking, how can we include those people that perhaps we've not included in the past? And a bit like you said earlier, those people who have felt lonely because community groups or faith groups or whatever group it might be has not thought, what must it be like to be in their shoes? And now I think we're all thinking a bit more of what's it like in the other person's position.
So I think my biggest hardship this year is maybe struggling to see that positivity as you saw it, as you describe it right now. I think I was trying to find that silver lining when everything just started happening, when we started understanding what we're up against. And I thought, wow, this pandemic does not discriminate regardless of who you are, where you're from, gender, age, ethnicity, culture, language, doesn't discriminate at all. I thought, kind of like that old film Independence Day, that humanity is fighting against the aliens from outer space. I thought we're all going to rise up, join hands, and work together and just put all of our differences aside. But still, throughout the last couple of months, we saw that we still managed to find many differences, whether it's political, whether it's the Black Lives Matter that rose and showed us how we still need to correct so much in our society, whether it's poor versus rich, whether it's still us versus them in so many levels, obviously the backdrop of Brexit. So I was very disappointed that I thought that we're all going to join hands and be more kind to each other, and I still haven't found that. So yes, we found ways to make people a bit more welcome with sign language and subtitles, but I still felt like many are not there yet. And even when we talk, we're still not kind to each other. And I even found it when we're going just to the supermarket, and some people are standing too close to you. Some are not wearing masks. Some are wearing masks. There's so many disagreements that we found, new disagreements that we found to celebrate. And that was really difficult for me this year. I found myself, I think, angrier than usual. Obviously, we always find something to disagree on, whether it's football or whether it's too hot, too cold, whether you should put your milk first or the tea bag first, all those common disagreements that we found. But I found that it's not as welcoming, it's not as caring as I really hoped it to be. And I found that I'm taking with me more than I was hoping to take it with me. So even at home in the safety of my non-COVID bubble, I still took some kind of mental baggage with me that I think still remain with me for the last 9, 10 months already.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand your thinking to some extent, but there's always somebody else worse off than ourselves. And I'm not trying to push your thoughts into insignificance at all. But I'm very fortunate that I do mix with a lot of different groups in a meaningful way for the last 5, 6 years. And I think that solidity and that platform of welcome, inclusion, respect, family feel is what is sustaining me now. So that when I go on a Zoom or a WhatsApp or a call, it may be awful if you're new to it all, but because I have those relationships, that entry point is easier for me. Of course, we're all different personality styles, and we all need different ways, different mechanisms for accessing things. And so that's why I perhaps inadvertently, when I said earlier, I've tried to write or phone or present something, write a piece of poetry and send it to somebody, or write a newsletter and send it to nearly 1,000 people. I'm in a subliminal way realizing there are different personalities, styles out there in the people that I engage with and the people that I want to engage with. And so how can I make what I think more accessible to support them in a way that I want to support them? So it's not thinking about me, albeit I do think about me as well sometimes for my own self-well-being and self-compassion. My life has been one where I'm generally thinking about other people, And I'm not saying that you don't think about other people, because I know you do. But yes, why should things affect us in the same way? Otherwise, we'd be like peas in a pod, and or like autonomons that stand up and do actions if you put a penny in the slot. Where people with hearts and minds and feelings and needs of disparate nature.
So being aware of the fact that I'm obviously subjective, do you feel like there was more kindness over the last couple of months?
I've seen more kindness in the last few months. I've seen the Sikh community from some of the Birmingham Sikh Gurdwaras. Normally they'd make thousands of meals to give to people passing through their Gurdwara. This year they've been out on the high street in a safe way, giving meals to poorer people, to frail people, to people in their houses. There's a group called Bearded Bros in Birmingham in the West Midlands in England, and originally it started by two guys with beards, and so they call themselves the Bearded Bros, and they take food to people that need it, and they take it on a motorbike, so they're there quickly. And now there's bearded ladies. They may not necessarily have a beard physically, but they've joined in with that ethos of, okay, people are from a different place. They're in a different place geographically to us. They're coming from a different faith perspective, if there's any faith in the, what shall we say, in the relationship. But we're going to take food to them. And, I'm not saying that I applaud food banks in the way that they're so necessary, because the government is not making appropriate provision. But churches, mosques, synagogues have all started food banks. Local communities have started food banks. Again, in my road and where my family live, people have knocked on the door saying, can you contribute towards the food bank if you don't already? And people don't just give, a packet of sausage rolls or a packet of toilet rolls or a tube of toothpaste. They give so generously because they think, well, it's so awful for people when we hear stories of people on the poverty line, not just the bread line, but below the bread line. Universities like Coventry University, they've got researchers and PhD professors looking at poverty and trying to chastise the government and the policymakers. The universities in Birmingham are extensively trying to be more engaged with the local community. And so, yes, to answer your question deliberately and direct, yes, I have seen more kindness because I think people from every particular background are saying, wow, more kindness is necessary. We can't just wait or blame people for not doing these things. If we want to see more kindness, we need to be the practitioner. And everything starts with me. What did Kennedy say years ago in the States? Don't think what your country can do for you, think what you can do for your country. And that's sort of a political mandate. But I think that resonates with people like you and me, that, you and I are making ourselves vulnerable to some extent by doing this show this morning. We don't know who will see it. We hope some people will see it. But actually, they may castigate us for saying the things we are. They may be thinking that we've got naive positions, or speaking from my perspective, from a naive faith perspective of loving everybody. But actually, I'm prepared to make myself vulnerable to evidence that I care for other people.
I think that's the first step for progression. Even if we are saying things are wrong, I think we're both open to comments, correct us, inform us, start a discussion. Maybe we're going to correct you. Nobody is safe from comments. That's the fun of living in a democracy. We're going to fight for our right to be right and wrong, and everyone around us. So thank you for correcting me. Thank you for enlightening me, for the kindness around you. I do believe it's some sort of a snowball effect. So yes, we need to take part of that as well. But it's also nice to think things around you, to know that you're part of something and not by yourself fighting against the stream. So thank you very much for adding that. On that
pleasure.
Joyous, hopeful note, we're going to enjoy another holiday song and then come back and talk about, again, more hardships, but also tools to kind of push through these interesting times, challenging times, but also interesting. We can learn about ourselves, our society, and our strengths as well. So again, thank you, David, for joining me today. We'll be back in just a couple of moments.
Okay. Oh, wonderful.